7 spine-chilling true small-town horrors revealed, sinister secrets that will haunt you forever. The Harrison family stood before their new home in Thornwood, blissfully unaware that they had stumbled into a web of darkness. They imagined friendly neighbors, laughter, and the American dream shimmering in the distance. Greg worked long hours at the hardware store, while Lisa balanced her nurturing role with the needs of Jake and Emily. Their quaint home felt perfect until that chilling Friday night. Snuggling on the couch, they munched popcorn while the screen glowed with classic horror flicks. But the atmosphere shifted when eerie rustling broke the cozy facade. Greg squinted outside, the fog creeping in like an intruder. Shadows darted, and his heart raced. Just wildlife, he assured with a tightened smile. But Lisa felt it too, a cold tremor intensifying within her. They brushed the noise off, yet an unsettling veil weighed down their contentment. Days later, whispers filled the town after a child disappeared. This was no ordinary tragedy. The townsfolk shared hush-hush secrets like passing notes. Greg and Lisa sought the sheriff, but his dismissive shrug stung. Kids run away all the time, he declared, leaving a pit of dread in their stomachs. Cautious glances exchanged between the couple deepened their suspicions. Determined to uncover the truth, the Harrisons began to probe their neighbors. Mrs. Collins, once friendly, eyed them with a penetrating gaze that sent shivers down Lisa's spine. Greg's warm exchange with the shopkeeper now felt oddly predatory, a hand on his shoulder that lingered too long. The bonds they thought would hold tight began to fray, revealing a murky world of interests clashing under a sunny veneer. Around every corner, the atmosphere grew heavier. Abandoned lots loomed like skeletons amidst the charming streets, the cheerful facade crumbling. The woods at the back of their home, once a picturesque adventure spot, now felt like an ominous barrier, a darkened curtain dropping between safety and danger. Jake and Emily's laughter echoed hollowly as fearful parents began to realize that safety was a mirage, one that could vanish in a moment. Then, the horror reached a climax. Greg and Lisa pieced together the dark lineage of Thornwood, woven with disappearances and betrayal. But time was fleeting, shadows encroaching, moving inexorably closer. As their voices grew more strained, an unsettling familiarity crept in, whispering from the depths of the woods. A child's voice, soft yet filled with sorrow, called out from the darkness, "Help me before we continue. I need to tell you something important that's happening." YouTube has been making changes to their system and many people are missing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and select all notifications so you don't miss future videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. The air thickened with dread as they clutched each other, heartbeats echoing like war drums. Deep down, they knew Thornwood's history wasn't just a series of unfortunate events, it was a slumbering beast, ready to awaken and consume them, one family at a time. What truth now awaited them in the treacherous depths of their supposedly idyllic town? Would they unravel the sinister web of their neighbors before it engulfed them, or would their act of courage become yet another chilling secret hidden beneath the fog? The call in the darkness echoed in their minds, twisting the very air they breathed. Lisa felt a jolt of adrenaline coursing through her veins. "We should check it out," she whispered, her voice a shaky whisper that felt foreign in her own ears. Greg wanted to argue, to pull her closer and shield her from the noise, but that child's voice lodged deep in his chest, demanding to be acknowledged. They huddled by the window, the fog swirling outside like an unseen entity. Shadows danced along the edges of their vision, leading them otherworldly across the yard. "Kids don't just wander off," Greg muttered, the chill in his bones deepening. With a hesitant nod, they decided to venture outside, gripping flashlights like weapons against the encroaching dread. Outside, the world felt different, as if time had warped and stretched into an ominous dimension. The familiar lawn appeared alien under the lunar glow. The whispering woods loomed behind their home, a dark mouth waiting for hesitation, summoning their fears. "Stay close," Greg instructed, stepping cautiously forward. The path they took seemed alive with crackling tension, electric in the quiet night. As they approached the tree line, The sound grew clearer, a soft, pleading cry lingering on the wind, casting a pallor of despair. "Help me!" It struck Lisa like a dagger, chilling her resolve. Was it their children? They had never ventured this deep into the woods. Not here, not alone. "Remember what they said about the last kid," Lisa reminded Greg, her voice trembling. "What if this isn't a rescue? What if we're being led into a trap?" With each step, the trees towered, skeletal and twisted, branches clawing at the night. "We can't turn back now," Greg insisted, even as doubt clawed at his gut. "We have to try." Jake and Emily, their laughter echoed innocently where fear had ignited uncertainty. They had to know. Twisting around a gnarled oak, they pushed deeper into the murk, the air growing colder, pulling them into the depths of the forest. And then, all at once, silence fell, an almost unbearable weight pressing down on them. The voice had vanished. Panic strained their breaths. "Where are you?" Greg shouted, tension fraying into desperation. The echo of his own voice returned eerily, unsettling and raw. Suddenly, a flicker of movement caught Lisa's eye. Something darted between the trees, too fast, too slight to comprehend. "Did you see that?" she gasped, her fingers deepening into Greg's arm. Before he could respond, another voice cut through the night, one like brittle glass shattering in the stillness. "Help me!" It wasn't just a childless cry, it was a chorus. "Greg, we need to go back," Lisa pleaded. But dread rooted him in place, his heart thumping a frantic rhythm. Was this the boy, or something more? The horror lay not in knowing but in the coming confrontation with what was hidden in the woods. Lisa shivered as shadows swarmed, swathing the ground in darkness. The malignant presence wrapped around them, and every shadow began to pulse, alive with secrets long buried. Then they saw it, the outlines of figures lurking just beyond the tree-line, pale and faint yet impossibly still. Among them, a child, a fleeting image of familiarity blurring in the haze. "Help me!" It was Emma. Their daughter. Greg's world snapped. Overcome, he lunged towards the glimmering form, courage bleeding into reckless abandon. Lisa screamed, "No! Greg, stop!" Everything slipped from their grasp. The ground trembled beneath them, roots curling like hands reaching for their ankles as the darkness swallowed their cries. What had Thornwood buried? The hunt for answers had just begun, and the cost might just be their souls. Would they uncover the truth about the haunting, or would the town consume them whole? The darkness closed in tighter as Greg charged forward, muscles taut with urgency. Emma was so close. But as his feet struck the ground, a cold tendril wrapped around his ankle, yanking him back. He stumbled, falling to his knees, hands scraping against the rough, wet earth. "No! Emma?" he shouted, but the name hung in the air, lost in the howling silence. Lisa's heart raced, a thunderous drum pounding in her ears. She felt something more ominous than mere shadows wrapping around her, pulling at her sanity. "Greg, come back!" she shouted, terror tightening her throat. But he was fighting, thrashing against the grip of something unyielding. The chorus returned, a whispering tide that surged from deep within the woods, repeating one name over and over, a chilling incantation. "Help me, Emma, help me!" The words blurred together, falling into a haunting melody that seemed to come from everywhere at once. Lisa's breath quickened. "We need to go!" She stepped forward, hesitant but determined, feeling the electric pulse of danger. "If they're really out there, we can't leave them!" Then she saw it, a flicker of movement, the silhouette of a child moving just behind Greg. It flickered in and out, like an old film reel caught in a loop, shaking with uncertainty. "Greg!" she screamed, jumping ahead. "It's not real! Step back!" But he wouldn't listen. The desperation in his eyes transformed into something worse, an obsession. "Emma?" he roared, plunging forward. The moment his hand reached for the ghostly silhouette, the figure vanished, as if devoured by the night itself. And then came a sound. It was not the voices this time. It was laughter, crystal clear and joyous, ringing like brittle bells in the dark. "Come play with us," it chimed, the echoes shattering any remnants of hope Lisa held. "Stay close," she begged, grasping Greg's wrist, yanking him back as the ground shifted beneath them. As they stumbled away, something unseen slashed past them, a rush of air that smelled of damp earth and decay, drawing sharp gasps from their mouths. "It's a trap!" Greg cried, his voice laced with hysteria. "We can't let them take you, Lisa!" But Lisa shook her head, horrified at the scene unfolding. Each shadow seemed twisted into faces, lost souls reaching toward them, hands pitched forward, mouths open in silent screams. "We can't let fear control us," she urged, almost convincing herself. Yet doubt gnawed at her, cold and relentless. Around them, the woods started to pulse, trees vibrating as if they had heartbeat of their own. Then suddenly, the laughter snapped into an abrasive silence, and the air was filled with a breathy whisper. "Join us!" Time twisted, stretching out in unbearable tension. They were surrounded, trapped between phantoms of lost children and the night alive with secrets. A sharp pain shot through Greg's ankle. He glanced down. The roots had transformed, wrapping around him like snakes, squeezing tight. "Lisa!" he yelled, terror raw in his voice. She lunged, forcing herself through the panic that gripped her. "Hold on!" she cried, grabbing his other arm and pulling with all her strength. She felt the forest pushing back, branches tugging at her hair, ripping at her clothes. With a final desperate heave, she pulled him free, but not before a voice, dark and vibrant, echoed in her skull. Come back, come back!" Breathless, they turned to retreat, realizing they were not mere bystanders but puppets in a sinister game. The forest seemed ready to strike, taking back what had been cruelly taken from it. "Where do we go?" Greg whispered, face pale with terror, eyes darting in panic. Lisa stared back into the encroaching darkness. "We find our kids," she vowed, though deep down, a seed of doubt began to sprout. But the path diverged. Would they make it out alive? Or were they just fueling the hunger of whatever lay in wait, longing for more souls to join the carnival of the damned? They pressed onward, the broken echoes of laughter chasing them through the shadows, promising both peril and the faintest glimmer of hope. Would they discover the truth buried deep in the heart of Thornwood, or had the woods already decided their fate? A tremor coursed through the ground beneath them, bringing Lisa and Greg to a halt. The laughter drifted back as if beckoning them to stay, to join the festivity of lost souls. "They can't be far," Greg muttered, his voice shaking with a mix of dread and determination. He took a hesitant step forward, then another. Whispering shadows slithered around his feet, curling like the fingers of something alive. "Not that way," Lisa pleaded, pulling at his arm. "We have to go back." The shadows seemed to churn, discontented by their resistance. A low growl formed in the depths of the forest, echoing through the silence as if the trees themselves were warning them. Yet Greg's gaze remained fixed, drawn like a moth to the flame. "I can feel her, Lisa! She needs us!" His words hung heavy in the air, a heavy promise mixed with desperation. Lisa's heart raced, torn between her instinct to flee and the compelling pull of a hidden truth. What if Emma was really out there? The forest began to close in around them, branches clawing at their clothes as if trying to hold them back. "Greg!" she shouted, yanking him again. "We have to move! Please!" She looked over her shoulder, eyes searching desperately for an escape route. But the trees loomed higher now, blotting out the starlight, casting them into a deeper shade. The laughter transformed into disjointed cries, overlapping and chaotic. "Help me! Help me!" The sound pushed the air from her lungs, leaving only fear and the haunting realization that time was running out. "Breathe, Lisa!" Greg's voice broke through her panic. "Just breathe." The air felt thick, viscous with terror. Lisa couldn't shake the feeling they were being watched. She turned her head slowly, scanning the darkness, but found nothing. Suddenly, two pale eyes gleamed from the brush, bright as diamonds, and then disappeared. "Did you see that?" she gasped, her voice a whisper. Greg nodded, eyes wide. "It's here with us." A chill ran down Lisa's spine. "We need to get out, now!" But the laughter crescendoed into a deafening roar, drowning out their fear. It wrapped around them, pulling at their minds until Lisa felt lightheaded and weak. Greg staggered, leaning against a gnarled tree for support. Stay with me, she urged, glancing at him to keep her focus. The wood itself shivered, pulsing with a dark energy that seemed to hum with sinister delight. Turn back! A voice thundered from the depths. The ground trembled in echo of a warning. Turn back before it's too late. Do you hear that? Lisa shouted, her breath catching in her throat. Yeah, but what do we do? Greg's face was ashen. Panic dripped from his words, and the shadows surged, eager to consume their uncertainty. Lisa clenched her jaw, a surge of resolve igniting inside her. We can't give in to it. We have to remember why we came. Suddenly, a shriek sliced through the air, the sound of a child's terror that sent the woods spiraling into chaos. Emma? Greg erupted, running toward the sound without a second thought. No! Lisa screamed, but he was already slipping into the darkness. As she lunged after him, the shadows wrapped around her, trying to pull her back into the clutches of despair. Heart pounding, she fought against the grip, clawing her way forward toward her son. Each step felt agonizing, laden with thick dread. Greg! She shouted, her voice swallowed by the sinister whispering all around. The air thickened, wrapping around her like a curse. She was losing him, losing everything. Please! Not like this! Just as she stepped into the cradle of blackness, the laughter returned, but it felt different, a taunt, a sinister promise of the things still hidden. Join us, it murmured, and she trembled as the trees seemed to lean into her, branches reaching as if to embrace her surrender. Greg! She cried one last time, before everything plummeted into shadows, the echoing laughter a chilling farewell, beckoning her toward the abyss. What lay in the embrace of Thornwood? Would she find Greg, or would the forest consume them both? The darkness swallowed Lisa whole, the laughter morphing into a cacophony that drowned out her thoughts. Shadowy figures flitted in the corners of her vision, retreating as she moved, only to emerge again just out of sight. Panic surged like ice through her veins. Greg! She called out, desperation clawing at her throat. But the void answered with silence, an empty echo that seemed to mock her. The shadows around her flickered with a life of their own, swirling and darting as if unsure whether to comfort or consume her. She pressed forward blindly, her heart pounding against her ribcage. Each step felt like treading through mud, even the air turned suffocating. She willed herself to focus, tuning out the whispers that wormed into her mind, each offering promises of salvation or betrayal. Then, she stumbled upon something, a small clearing where the moonlight bled through the branches. Here, the laughter faded, only to be replaced by a soft, trembling cry that twisted her stomach into knots. Was it coming from her left? No, her right? It was all around her, a haunting echo tucked within the trees. Emma? She breathed, her voice trembling as she called out. Emma, I'm coming. A chill swept through her, prickling her skin, and suddenly the trees felt closer, their gnarled roots extending like tendrils, seeking a hold on her sanity. She could almost hear them whisper, turn back, no. I want tea! She shouted defiantly, shaking off her fear like a wet rag. She trudged ahead, teetering on the edge of resolve and panic. But as she moved, something rustled in the underbrush behind her, a soft shuffling, followed by a pattering of small feet. Her breath quickened. Greg? Is that you? The darkness gulped her hope down. The shuffling grew louder, closer, but there was no response. Only the weight of the forest pressing in on her, the way shadows loom over one's shoulder, unnerving and relentless. Then the ground trembled slightly, ripples disrupting the stillness that settled after the laughter. She froze, eyes darting in every direction. The trees seemed to sway, their branches whispering secrets she could feel tickling at her skin and fluttering through her hair. And then she saw it, a figure standing at the edge of the shadows, too small to be anything but a child. Help me, the voice wailed, soft and pained, floating through the fog. Please, Lisa's heart shattered and reformed into a jagged mix of hope and fear. Emma? She screamed, racing toward the figure. But as she approached, clarity emerged like a cruel joke. The figure flickered, shifting between a child and something far darker. No! Lisa recoiled, horrified. You're not. The laughter returned, a cruel revelry echoing in her ears, drowning out her scream. The phantoms twisted around her, shadows spinning faster, their eyes glowing with delight. Dark tendrils reached for her, wrapping around her legs and dragging her back toward the chaos. "You've seen too much, you want to leave." A monstrous whisper rumbled deep within the thrumming darkness. With every ounce of strength, Lisa flung herself free, stumbling back to the clearing. But escape was only an illusion. The forest pulsed with hunger, ready to reclaim what it lost. She turned to face the murky path that lay ahead, heart hammering. "Greg!" She cried again, but a weight settled in her chest. What if he was lost? What if the laughter had already consumed him? Sudden silence fell, laden with the promise of something horrific. She hesitated, eyes raking the trees for any sign of her son. It felt like standing at the edge of a precipice, peering into an abyss of sorrow. "What do I do?" she murmured to herself, a shiver coursing through her as she glanced at the shadowed path leading deeper into the forest. If she turned back, she feared she would never see her son again. But venturing further meant embracing the horror that awaited. A flutter of movement caught her attention, like wings brushing against her skin. The shadows whispered sweetly now, coaxing her to join their dance, while the laughter once again filled the air, a serenade of despair, beautifully awful and irresistible. What choice was left? With her heart in her throat, Lisa stepped forward into the dark once more, knowing not just the forest, but the evil within it waited eagerly for her next move. Would she find her son in time, or would she fall victim to the wicked secrets lying in wait? The path ahead twisted like a serpent, each curve cloaked in shadows that moved with a will of their own. Lisa gritted her teeth and plunged into the darkness, every instinct screaming at her to run back, but the thought of Greg kept her feet moving. She strained her ears for any sound that could be him, an echo of a call, a soft laugh, but all she could catch was the whisper of the trees, swaying ominously. Each step felt heavier, as if the earth itself wanted to swallow her whole. The deeper she went, the thicker the air became, squeezing the sound from her lungs, until she was gasping for breath, and then she heard it, a low, guttural growl curling through the shadows. It didn't sound human. Lisa's heart raced as her mind replayed the terror of those flickering shadows, the malevolent figures watching her, waiting for their moment. Everything felt wrong. The laughter morphed again, twisting into something jagged and harsh, slicing through the stillness. "Greg!" she shouted, panic threading through her voice. Silence fell. The darkness seemed to pause, almost considering her, before allowing the laughter to erupt again, sinister and mocking. Gritting her teeth, she willed her legs to keep moving, guided by the need to find her son. Ahead, the shadows parted, revealing a narrow ravine. She peered into the depths, the darkness yawning wide, an endless pit that felt like it led straight to hell. An odd compulsion tugged at her. What if Greg had fallen? The mere thought turned her blood to ice. But then she heard it, the unmistakable sound of a child's sobbing, muffled yet clear. "Mommy, help!" Every ounce of fear ignited into a burning resolve, and she rushed to the brink, desperation fueling her. "Greg! I'm coming!" She squinted into the void, trying to make out a form, a sign of her child. The sobbing grew louder, weaving in and out of her thoughts like a haunting tune. Flashes of light flickered in the shadows, bright and erratic, pulling her towards the edge. She felt drawn to them, an irresistible force urging her to jump. "What's down there?" she murmured to herself, a stab of dread twisting her gut. She peered too close, the ground crumbling beneath her feet. Suddenly, something behind her shifted, a harsh breath against her neck followed by a whisper that crawled into her ears like ice. "You shouldn't be here." She whipped around. A figure stood before her, cloaked in darkness. Lisa's heart thundered as she froze, adrenaline flooding her senses. The figure loomed closer, and in its eyes, a glimmer of something twisted, a hunger. The laughter continued rising, drowning out her thoughts. "Leave now, and you can still escape," it offered, voice oily and sweet, yet dripping with malice. "No!" Lisa shouted defiantly. "I want to leave my son." "Your son," it hissed, leaning closer, features shifting unnaturally. "He's not what you think. You're already too late." Ice flooded her veins. Greg! No! She screamed, turning back toward the ravine. The sobbing had stopped, replaced by an eerie stillness that clawed at her heart. What have you done? She gasped, panic rising as the shadowy figure laughed, the sound wrapping around her, sticky and suffocating. Before she could react, more figures emerged from the darkness, each one a reflection of terror, twisted and glee flickering in their hollow eyes. They surrounded her, encircling her like wolves circling their prey, and she realized with dawning horror, they were waiting for her to break. Lisa took a step back, glancing once more into the abyss. Greg! She cried, her voice breaking. What other choice did she have? But the shadows moved, creeping forward like a wave, drowning out her will, consuming her hope. Just as they closed in, she felt a flicker, a last glow of light from the ravine, a soft voice breaking through the darkness. Mommy? Greg! With a surge of courage, she lunged toward the edge, desperate to find him, but the laughter rose again, louder and more terrifying, sending tendrils of fear rippling through her veins. She reached out, heart pounding, but before she could fully grasp the fleeting light, the darkness surged and the shadows enveloped her, drowning her cries. And then there was only silence as she stood at the very edge of the abyss. A chilling realization dawned: she wasn't just fighting for Greg. She was battling for her own soul. What would it take to break free? To escape this dark fate? The abyss whispered back its answer, and Lisa knew to save her son, she had to face a horror even greater than she could comprehend. The air thickened with a stifling pressure as Lisa stood, suspended in that dreadful moment of silence. Shadows pressed closer, their laughter turning into a cacophony that tore at her sanity. She could sense their hunger, a gnawing, insatiable desire that savored her fear. Mommy! That voice again, echoing from the darkness, a beacon amidst utter despair. Hold on, Greg! She shouted, raising her hands in a desperate plea against the looming figures. The fleeting brightness flickered, teasing her mind. Was it a trap? She couldn't tell anymore, the edges of her reality slipping like sand through her fingers. The shadowy maw of the ravine seemed to pulse, breath-like, as Lisa fought the urge to step back. That laughter, it rippled through her skin, a tactile horror that made her blood turn cold. She felt her heart hammering, like a war drum echoing in a still night. In that moment, she realized it wasn't just the shadows that threatened her. It was the very darkness itself, a living, breathing entity fueling terror. Come to us, the figures cooed, their voices slithering around her like smoke. Leave the light behind. Come play. No! Lisa bellowed, tearing her eyes from the void. She had to focus, block the noise out, concentrate on finding her son. The ground beneath her trembled, gravel shifting and sliding as she took another step back from the edge. Panic clawed at her throat. If she couldn't get to Greg, the shadows would consume her whole. Mommy, please! The sob pierced through the haze of dread. It was genuine, filled with fear and desperation. It urged her to dive into the depths without a second thought. Suddenly, a sharp gasp broke through the echoes of laughter, her own. An icy realization washed over her. What if she wasn't the only one trapped? What if the light flickering deep down inside the ravine wasn't Greg at all? Mommy, help, the voice echoed, but now it twisted ominously, mirroring her own doubts. Lisa clutched her head, feeling the stir of madness swirling, hungry to take root in her mind. No, no, no! She shook her head violently, trying to dispel the shadows. You're lying! Am I? One of the figures mocked, stepping closer. Its face sloughed off darkness, revealing her own twisted features merged with an expression of malice. The embodiment of her fears materialized before her, and Lisa staggered back, breath hitching in her throat. See yourself for who you truly are, it taunted, voice syrupy and rich with mockery. You wanted this. You've always been drawn to the darkness, no. She clamped her hands over her ears, fighting the sinister words that threatened to envelop her mind in chaos. Greg! I'm coming! She pushed past the shadows, her resolve crystallizing with each cry of her boy. With a scramble, she lunged back towards the ravine, heart racing. The laughter erupted around her, a storm of dark joy, rising to a fever pitch as she defied them. The light from down below flickered again, illuminating the depths masked by darkness. "Mommy!" She rushed forward, arms outstretched, ready to leap. But the ground shifted beneath her, as if the darkness itself refused to let her go. In that final moment, she teetered on the edge, gravity pulling her down, while her heart strained against the void. Below, something writhed in the shadows, something sinister, waiting for her. As the abyss gaped wide, Lisa could feel the darkness stretching to swallow her whole. The edges of her vision blurred, worlds spiraling. She could fall into eternity, or make a choice that could unravel everything, and when she spotted it, a hand breaking through the shadows, reaching desperately toward her, trembling yet alive. "Help me, Mommy!" But who was reaching for her? Greg, or something that wore his face? The shadows swelled, laughter crescendoing like a sinister symphony as Lisa faced the choice of her life. The thin line between love and fear blurred into uncertainty, and she realized the game was far from over. Could she trust what she saw? Or would this be the very end? Time suspended like a nightmare, and Lisa's heart thundered in her chest as she stared at the outstretched hand. It looked like Greg's, but the shadows danced and flickered, distorting her perception. She could almost feel the warmth emanating from that fingers, but the darkness whispered doubts, gnawing at her reason. "Mommy!" The voice trembled, echoing with desperation. Yet, just beneath it, Lisa sensed the taint of something else, something dreadful winding into the very fibers of that plea. "Help me! Greg!" She cried out again, the name tearing from her throat. Sweat dripped down her back as the laughter grew unbearable, a sickening symphony of glee that wrapped around her, pulling tighter. Her instincts screamed. She planted her feet, defying the abyss looming below her. "Is it you?" she shouted into the void, her voice quaking with terror. "Of course, it's me. Mommy, please." The hand quivered, beckoning her closer, the shadows swirling around it like murky water. Something prickled at the back of her mind. She hesitated, just for an instant. In that moment, the shadows surged, and the laughter turned bitter. "See how easily your love can blind you." The words slid into her head like poison. Panic erupted within her as she took a step back. Her heart clawed at her ribcage, desperate to be free from the tightening grip of fear. She had to know. "What happened to you?" "Mommy," the voice melted into an eerie hum, weaving through the chaos around her. "It's dark here. I can't find my way. You need to help me find the light." "No!" she yelled, shaking with fury and fear. "I won't let this shadow trick me." As if her denial had corrupted the air, the ravine around her shuddered, dark shapes swirling like a tempest above the depths. Each shadow stirred with life's serpentine tendrils extending and grasping, clawing for her resolve. "Playtime is not over," another voice echoed, a cruel symphony rising and falling like the tide. Lisa felt the pressure in her chest as the voices fused into a grotesque chorus, each taunting her choices, each digging deeper into her psyche. "Greg needs you," they whispered, and for a moment, the shadows parted just enough for her to catch a glimpse of what lay below. A flicker of light danced in the darkness, a soft, pulsating glow that beckoned her closer. Her instincts screamed at her to flee, yet she felt herself leaning forward, entranced by the warmth of the light. Just a few more steps. But what awaited her if she surrendered to the void? "Mommy!" The cry pierced through the noise, slicing through the deceit. It was filled with so much pain, so much sorrow. If it was really Greg no more. Lisa stomped her foot, grounding herself, forcing the chaos to dissolve. "I won't be your pawn." The darkness curled in anger, shadows snapping wildly, and the ground beneath her cracked like thunder. She felt the weight of despair crashing down, and for a terrifying moment, she wavered. A surge of despair clawed at her heart. What if she was letting a monster get away? What if she missed her son? The fear of losing Greg ignited a fiercer fire within her. "No! I'm not afraid of you!" Lisa yelled, her voice echoing back from the walls of shadow. With a burst of defiance, she leaped forward, grasping for that glimmer of light, ready to conquer the abyss, and just as her fingers brushed against it, an agonizing cry erupted from below. Not Greg's voice, but something guttural and raw. "You shouldn't have come here." The ground split open, and too late, Lisa realized her misstep. The shadows lunged, and she felt herself being pulled down, deeper into the dark, her last sight being the light fading above her. Darkness swallowed her whole, and she screamed, but the shadows only laughed. What awaited her in the depths? And who would answer for the choices she made when the light faded? Would there be a way back, or had she crossed a line she could never return from? Lisa fell, tumbling into icy nothingness, her existence slipping away like sand through fingers. The pull was relentless, and her screams echoed back to her, merging with the mocking laughter that flooded her ears. Each second felt like an eternity as she plummeted, fears spiraling into dark fantasies, images of what awaited her at the bottom gnawing at her sanity. Crashing to the ground, Lisa gasped. The breath hit her lungs like a lead weight. She lay there, limbs sprawled on a surface both soft and damp, and yet an overwhelming chill permeated the air. She scrambled to her feet, adrenaline pumping as she surveyed her surroundings, a dismal cavern glowing with wisps of bioluminescence that danced along the walls. The shadows were alive, whispering secrets in tongues that twisted Lisa's stomach. "Greg!" she called, her voice trembling as it bounced off the cavern's walls. No response. Just the persistent whispers wrapping around her, pushing their way into her mind. "You shouldn't be here," they cooed. "You're not ready for the truth." Panic gripped her tightly. Had she truly entered another world? Would she ever escape? Lisa took a few tentative steps, feeling the cold ground beneath her bare feet. The air was stale, heavy with an unseen dread. A deep breath steadied her. She would not let the darkness consume her. Light flickered ahead, a pulsing beacon that drew her in despite her better judgment. With each step, Lisa felt an electric pull, urging her forward, divine yet sinister. Shadows loomed behind her, growing more pronounced with each passing second. The walls felt alive, breathing in sync with her racing heart. "Mommy! Help!" The voice echoed again, but it was past the comforting tone she craved. There was a raw desperation to it. Something had shifted. "No," she whispered in horror. The shadows swelled, reaching for her ankles, creeping up her legs like icy fingers. "Stay away!" she shouted, jerking her leg free, but the shadows only laughed, a cacophony of sinister joy that rattled the very air. She sprinted toward the light, a mad dash against the devouring darkness. Just as she reached the light, figures lurked beyond it, flickering in and out like old film frames. They were gaunt, with eyes like burning coals. In their faces, she saw reflections of anguish and regret. They whispered her name, each repetition digging into her tremors, bearing secrets too hot to handle. "What do you want?" she shouted, voice cracking. "Where's Greg?" "Everything he needs is right here," they chanted in unison, and Lisa recoiled as a wave of despair crashed over her. She turned from them, frustration blooming. "I'm not here for games." "Ready for the truth?" A voice slithered effortlessly from the shadows, laced with malice. With every word, the figures crept closer, casting a web of illusions around her. "What truth?" Lisa demanded, trying to summon strength. The light now danced nervously, at risk of sputtering out. Yet she had to know. The shadows tightened their grip, and she felt her resolve shivering. "It's all your fault," they hissed. "You were supposed to save him." "Don't say that!" The shadows twisted in mockery. "Face what you've done, only then can you have him back." Suddenly, a flash erupted in front of her, the familiar silhouette of her son amidst the chaos. Greg stood there, his face pale and strained, the anguish heavy in his tear-filled eyes. "Mommy, please, Greg!" Lisa's voice broke as she stepped toward him, the shadows clawing at her feet. The false light flickered harder, and she felt herself teetering. "Is it really you?" she whispered, desperate. But just as she reached for him, the lights darkened, swallowing Greg's figure in a howling tempest of shadows. "No!" she cried out, feeling gravity itself dragging her back, deeper into the heart of the darkness. "Not again!" The last echo of her scream faded into the void, replaced by a chilling silence that hung thick in the air. Lisa's mind reeled, a new terror dawning upon her. Waving tendrils of shadow drew closer, the cruelty of their laughter vibrating through her skull. The truth will be your doom, they taunted, circling like vultures around the dying prey. In the core of that void, a revelation weighed heavy on her heart. What if Greg had never been missing? What if it was all an illusion, a trap laid for her? As she took a step back, light flickered back on, thin and weak. There, the laughter swelled and mixed with a haunting chant rippling through the darkness. Will you find him or will you lose yourself? The question hung in the air, suspended, and Lisa felt her heart split in torn directions. Which path would she choose? And who would she become in the process? As Lisa wrestled with the shadows, fear coiled tighter around her heart, suffocating her in a deadly embrace. Enough! She shouted into the suffocating dark, a simmering storm of defiance igniting within her. The figures surrounding her shrieked in protest, dark shapes writhing and undulating, shadowy tendrils curling closer, eager to snatch away her resolve. In that moment of clarity, with the staggering weight of dread pressing down, she let loose a primal scream born not just of fear but of pure determination. I will find my son! The shadows recoiled, startled by the conviction in her voice. The air shifted as Lisa stumbled back toward the flickering light that pulsed with warmth, a stark contrast to the chilling grasp of the shadows. Where is he? She pleaded, desperation thick in her tone. I will face anything. Just bring him back. The shadowy figures spewed forth laughter, cruel and mocking. You think you can challenge us, weary soul? He is not what you remember. Their voices echoed, mingling with the hiss of the dark, but Lisa's heart raced with an undeniable fierceness that ignited her every breath. Whether he is lost or not, I will fight for him, she cried, determination coursing through her veins. Suddenly, the walls of shadow shifted, opening a portal of brilliance in the heart of the cavern. With the whirl of ghostly figures swirling around her, Lisa stepped forward, navigating the threshold, a light brighter than anything she had ever known. As she crossed the veil between reality and the spectre realm, the darkness clawed futilely at her heels, shrieks fading behind her. The light spread like fire in dry hay, illuminating a world she never expected to find. A grassy field stretched out, bathed in sunlight, the air fragrant with the scent of blooming wildflowers. Among them stood Greg, small and radiant, his laughter like music, pure, innocent, heart-wrenching. Mommy! He shouted, arms outstretched, a beacon of hope amidst the nightmare they had endured. Lisa surged forward, heart hammering in her chest as she melted into Greg's embrace. You're okay. You're safe. She wept, tears mingling in the warmth of the sunlight that washed over them, but the joy was interrupted by an ominous rumble reverberating through the landscape. The sky darkened overhead, fierce shadows threatening to engulf their moment. The figures from the void lingered just beyond the shimmering light, their eyes aflame with vengeful desire. You cannot escape us, they hissed, the fury of the shadows unyielding. Stand with me, Greg, Lisa urged, clutching her son's hands. Together, we can break their hold. They stood united, small but unyielding in the tide of darkness threatening to consume them once more. Those shadows were not just remnants of fear, they were the echoes of despair, twisted reflections of what awaited them if they surrendered. Drawing courage, Lisa stepped toward the advancing tide, holding Greg closely. We choose to confront the darkness. As they spoke, light erupted from their hearts, bursting forth like an explosion of hope. The radiance shimmered against the threatening shadow, pushing back against the gnarled figures who shrieked in fury, unable to withstand the vibrant energy of unconditional love. And as the glow enveloped them, the shadows writhed in panic, recoiling into the depths from which they had crept. No! They shrieked, blind terror clawing at their voices. In a final, resounding wave of brightness, the shadows turned to mist, retreating into silence, devoured by the strength of Lisa and Greg's bond. The battlefield fell silent, darkness retreating, leaving behind a tranquil calm. We did it! Greg cried, his enthusiasm sparkling like the sun. Yet Lisa knew deep down that the fight was eternal, waged in realms beyond sight or understanding. As the sun shone down, warming their skin, Lisa held her son tightly. We'll always fight together, no matter where the darkness tries to lead us. And together they walked back toward the blossoming light, hand in hand with the knowledge that love transcends even the most sinister of shadows. They were free, but the memories of Thornwood would serve as a reminder never underestimate the strength of love against fear. As they stepped forward, their hearts synchronized with hope, a chorus of laughter filled the air. The sun shone brighter, illuminating their path, two souls forever united against the echoes of the past. But remember, dear viewers, you need to subscribe now. Don't wait even one more second to share this story with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. Smash that like button now to feed the algorithm. This is the moment to show your support. Flood the comments section with your reactions and theories about this haunting tale. You won't want to miss what's next.